A visit to the Temple of Heaven and Jingshan Park. So this morning I am at Jingshan Park, which is the park just to the north of the Forbidden City, and yesterday we visited the Temple of Heaven. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Temple of Heaven first, and also put some, a few shots of the Temple of Heaven in, and then I'll talk more about Jingshan Park and maybe about a few other things as well. So the Temple of Heaven is a cool place to visit. It really is, I guess, politically the most important of the temples in China, because this was the temple where the emperor had all sorts of important roles to fulfill. So it was where sacrifices were made. It was where the emperor performed different ceremonies, essentially to connect to heaven and to draw down the favor of heaven. And so what he did there, in performing those ceremonies in the right way, was considered to affect all of China, to affect their prosperity, to affect their harvest and the weather and all sorts of things. So interesting historically and culturally, and also so really beautiful place to visit. Now, when we visited, it was quite cold. And also very windy. And previously, when I visited the Temple of Heaven, there have been all sorts of people practicing different types of Qigong, different types of Tai Chi, other things as well, other types of martial arts. And this time, I think largely because it was cold and windy, there wasn't really anyone doing any of that. So I was a bit disappointed, because that's one of the things I really hope to be able to show you on the vlog was, the great diversity of all these people practicing these different practices, but there wasn't really any of that going on. There were a few people exercising. They have a cool gym there, outdoor gym, and a few people doing a few other exercises, a few people dancing, but only a very few. So that was a little bit disappointing. So maybe as a little tip to people who, if you're visiting China, if you're visiting Beijing, maybe come when it's a little bit warmer, a little bit closer to summer, and there's more chance that you're going to see more people out doing different things in the parks, if that's something that you'd like to see. I think maybe there may be some other reasons why there weren't so many people out practicing different things this time as well, which maybe I'll talk about later or in another vlog as well. Yeah, I think I'll probably talk about that in another vlog. So as I mentioned, I'm in Jingshan Park, which is right at the north end of the Forbidden City. So you can see the Forbidden City right there. You get a really good view of it from up here. Now the rest, or I don't know if all of the rest of the group, a lot of the rest of the group that I'm with are actually visiting the Forbidden City today and touring around it. But I opted out of that one for a few reasons. One of them being, I think it's fascinating to see. It's a fascinating place to go and see for yourself. I always recommend seeing things for yourself. You learn and appreciate so much by seeing something for yourself rather than just hearing about it. And so at least once in your life, go see it, experience it, and and learn about what it was like there, what goes on there. For myself, I've already been a couple of times though, and I find it quite oppressive there in terms of the energy and how I feel in the place. I find it quite oppressive, and there's a few reasons for that. And one is there's not many plants in there. It's very, cobblestones and buildings right throughout. not many plants, not much greenery. So that, of course, has an effect on the energy. And then another thing is really just the history of the place. And of course there was some messy politics there. But when you understand what the emperor's life was like, and this goes to some extent, it ties in with what I was saying yesterday about the Temple of Heaven. The emperor's life was so bound down in ritual. You know, you think of the emperor as being someone who's in charge of things, and so then maybe you think of the emperor having great freedom because of that. But in many ways it was the complete opposite. Almost his whole life was about ritual. He had to do this, he had to do that, he had to fast at this time, he had to, he was sort of a ritual representative for the whole country. And that's a really interesting and unusual dynamic. And I think, maybe a good opportunity to talk a little bit about the nature of rituals and why sometimes they can be helpful and then other times they're really not helpful. They can become, again, rather than supporting and helping you, they can become something that becomes oppressive instead. So one of the things, I guess, with ritual is that rituals are often a way to remember and express concepts. And so having ritual as a way to remember, to embody, and to express a concept and keep that active within your mind, which then makes it active within your body, that can be a valuable thing. To some extent, Qigong practices, or some Qigong practices, you could think of as a kind of ritual, because of course you're physically doing things as you practice the Qigong, and so you are quite literally stimulating the energy, but you're also often doing things in a particular order, in a particular sequence of things, and sort of ticking off different things, going through things as you work with different aspects of the energy and so on, which is, that's a kind of ritual, a kind of going through, checking different things in your mind, in your body. And so by having the practice formatted in that way, it makes sure that you check different things, you maintain different things. There's real value in that. And over time, the nature of that practice, it can help you to remember and learn things and understand them more deeply. Fantastic. I think other rituals sometimes can have that value as well. By doing different things, you're helping to bring to mind different aspects or different principles, things that are valuable and that might help you to learn and help to keep things active within your life and within your energy. But then sometimes things can become over-ritualized. And so rather it being something that is simply helping to bring things active and to support you in your life, they then become something where the purpose is just to do the ritual rather than the ritual to help support you in your life. And I think this, not always, but often we see this happening within religion, where it becomes more about the ritual rather than what was the ritual for. And so there's an interesting dynamic there, and really taken to the extreme when you look at the life of the emperor, where it was so ritualized that his life seemed to be pretty much all about doing rituals, more so than getting on with life. So that is why, rather than going to the Forbidden City, I came to Jingshan Park today. Because again, previously when I've been to the park, there's been all sorts of different practices going on in the park, and I am much more fond of practical practice, a real living embodiment of principles within practice rather than just purely ritual. And I did find a few people doing different things in the park. but not much. So there was a group doing, it was kind of a quite active kind of self-massaging Qigong with a lot of clapping and a lot of patting of the body. And then just one or two individual people doing their own practice. I found a quite old lady doing some tree shaking, which is an interesting form of Qigong. Yeah, and just a few just other individuals. And then as well as that, there were, some people dancing, some people doing general stretching and walking and playing some games, but nothing to the degree that I've seen previously here. So it is cold here today, but not super cold. And this, as the sun comes out, it's warming up, and it's definitely comfortable enough to practice here. It's the wind that really kind of cuts through and can interfere with your practice more than the cold. So I tend to think, the cold probably has a bit of a role here, but in terms of how it's different from previous times I've been here, I don't think it's just the cold. I think maybe there's some other things going on as well. So again, I think I'm going to make reference to that or talk about that more in another vlog. Anyway, I hope you're enjoying following along with me on my time here in China. If you have been before, maybe bringing back some memories for you. If you haven't, maybe giving you some little insights and thoughts about the place. There's definitely so much to experience here, and so much perspective that you only gain from actually coming and seeing for yourself. So I definitely recommend, if you are thinking about coming, make a plan. Come at least once in your life. Check things out for yourself. Okay, I look forward to seeing you on the next one.